So since Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. were both big successes for Nintendo, the company saw fit to develop another sequel to the popular Donkey Kong brand. In 1983, Donkey Kong 3 was released to the arcades, and it did very poorly. But why is that? In my opinion, I think there were many things that caused this game to not do so well, but let's just dig a little deeper and see what exactly caused this game to fail.
Well, for starters, there was never an official arcade cabinet release of Donkey Kong 3. Instead, Nintendo sent conversion cabinets to arcade stores where they could convert older arcade cabinets, like Donkey Kong, into the newer game. This decision was a likely reason for the game's poor sales numbers, but this was probably done to save on costs of making new arcade cabinets from scratch. So with the new game in the arcade, how did it play? Firstly, this game does not have the player controlling Mario or Donkey Kong Jr. Instead, the player controls Stanley the Bugman. Who? Stanley the Bugman. However, this wasn't his first video game debut. He initially appeared in the Game & Watch game called Garden House, but in that game, he was known as the the Fumigator. Now, in Donkey Kong 3, Stanley has a spray gun full of bug repellent, I guess, and you use it to spray oncoming bugs who are trying to steal your plants. You can also use it to spray Donkey Kong, and by doing so, he continues to climb upwards on vines. If DK is somewhere in the middle when climbing up, Stanley's spray gun can increase in firepower and allows for faster and more powerful sprays. If Donkey Kong reaches the top, the level ends. Unlike the previous two games where the story ended at the fourth stage and then repeated, Donkey Kong 3 is more like a traditional arcade game like Pac-Man and Galaga. The game just continues until you run out of lives. It feels much more like an arcade shooter. Speaking of shooters, that was another reason for the game's failure. Critics of the game said that the game didn't innovate in the shooting genre and was more or less a similar game to Galaga and Space Invaders. However, the final nail in the coffin for DK3's abysmal performance in the arcade was due to the video game crash of 1983. In that year, the video game industry had become oversaturated with poor quality games such as E.T. and the Atari 2600 port of Pac-Man, as well as consumer confusion when it came to buying consoles. Things such as the Atari 5200, ColecoVision, and Intellivision caused frustration as to what system was best to buy. It wasn't like nowadays where there are only 3 system manufacturers competing. Back then, there were dozens, maybe even 2 dozens of consoles being sold. It was because of all this confusion and oversaturation that the game industry just crashed, and along with it, the decline in the popularity of arcade games. As a result, Donkey Kong 3 ended up selling 5,000 units, which was a far cry from the 60,000 and 30,000 units sold of Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. respectively. Like its predecessors, Donkey Kong 3 received ports, though as far as I know the only port was on the NES. It was also re-released under the Arcade Archives on the Switch, and the NES version is also available thanks to the NES Switch Online app. As a whole, I don't think Donkey Kong 3 is a bad game. Now, I don't think it's my favorite of the Donkey Kong arcade games, but there is some charm to playing it. The graphics are nice, the music is good, and the gameplay, in my opinion, takes a unique spin on the shooter. If the situation surrounding the game had not occurred, then it is likely that the game would have been much more loved and appreciated than it is. Unfortunately, this game would mark a drought of sorts in terms of Donkey Kong game releases. We wouldn't see another traditional Donkey Kong game until 1994, when both Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong 94 were released. Now, Donkey Kong 94 was the last game to be based on the traditional platforming the arcade games created, and Donkey Kong Country would take the series in a new direction. I'll likely go into more details whenever I review the Donkey Kong Country series.
Now, even though Donkey Kong 3 didn't perform that well, Nintendo still had another arcade game released that year. Join me next time when we look at Mario Brothers. Until then, this is Arcade Chronicles.